What is up guys, it's your boy Solheim here, back with another Classic WoW video for you, and I'm just going to tell you right now, today we're doing a react video, but I'm recording this introduction after the reaction itself, because I want to give you guys a little bit of information and do an actual introduction. Now, I will say, there's been quite a few actual reacting videos on this channel recently, and I will be stepping it down on those, but this one right here I feel like is very important. It goes into the whole psychology and mentality behind Classic Plus, and I feel like right now we are at a massive crossroads in Classic WoW, where people's voices need to be heard, and opinions as well need to be said. I have my opinion, you have yours, and I beg you to voice your opinion either in the comments of this video, the comments of every video, not just by me, but like anyone talking about Classic Plus, and make forum threads and make Reddit threads. I believe we are at an important crossroads where people need to voice their opinions on the current state of Classic WoW, and also what they want to see in Classic Plus. It is very important that we simply find ways to let Blizzard know. If there's anything that the past has shown us here, is that if you want Blizzard to react and do something, you need to be public about what you want to happen. So today we are watching this video right here. It says Classic Plus will never work, and the title is Classic Plus is impossible. So obviously right there we have some rage baiting, but the video itself is incredibly good, and we're going to watch the entire thing. I do want to say that all of these reactions, by the way, they do happen over on Kick, so please come and follow me on Kick. The link is down below. We're even a Kick partner now, so simply lurking in the stream helps me massively as a content creator, by the way. You don't even have to make an account, just keep the tab open and watch the stream on Kick. It helps me out way more than you think. So consider doing that, and if you do have an account, consider throwing me a follow, really helps out as well, and even making an account simply to follow really helps out. We have a couple of content creators in Classic WoW right now that are going over to Kick, and we're trying to make a nice Classic WoW community over on Kick. Me and Hammerdance, for example, streaming pretty much every single day over on Kick, Classic WoW content. Even right now, I am leveling one of my first Horde characters ever in Anniversary on a PvP server. So if you're playing Spine Shatter on the Alliance side, I'm right here. Like, you can come out and do some PvP. Well, at least when I get to a higher level zone. At the moment in Mulgore you can't really do much, but hey, when I get to a higher level you can do whatever. So that could be fun. Either way, come over on Kick. I will also say this video right here is 30 minutes long, and I do pause it quite a bit, so this video right here could end up being an hour or even more than an hour. So throw it on the second monitor, open your game, play the game, and just watch this or listen to it on the second monitor again. It's like, it's something you want to listen to while doing something else, alright? And for the future, many of the reactions will simply be on Kick only, and I'm only going to make videos of the ones that I think are important and good enough to actually be turned into videos. I also have a bunch of video ideas for myself, so like, I have to try to not upload too many videos either, and I have so many things that I simply want to talk about. Either way, with this being said, let's do some reactions and let's watch the video. There's this YouTube video, this one right here, Classic Plus. The thumbnail says it is impossible, and the title says Classic Plus will never work. Kinda want to see what that's all about, man.
Listen
Also,
up, everybody. I have bad news.
let me just double see if he has a face camera anywhere, if I can just use the regular React cam instead of this one. So if I do this, that should be okay, right? We can check it out. Classic Plus will never work, and he has bad news.
I don't think Blizzard knows what Classic Plus is. In fact, I don't even think World of Warcraft players know what Classic Plus is, what it could or should look like, whether it...
Dude, nobody knows what Classic Plus is, and I feel like everybody has their own version of what Classic Plus is. I feel like at this point the best path forward would be to have user-generated content, and if Blizzard really wants a piece of that pie, which they obviously do, allow users to make custom-made content on their servers. That way people still need to have a sub to play on those servers, and that way you can, for example, have Classic Plus Server 1 made by Torta, and then you can have Classic Plus Server 2 made by whoever the fuck made Epoch, and just do it that way. And that way, if I like Server 1, I can play on server 1, and Blizzard still rakes in sub from me as a player on server 1. And for people that don't like server 1, let's just say the leveling is too slow on server 1, server 2 could have faster leveling for people that like that aspect. It is just Classic Plus will never please everyone. No matter what they do, it won't please everyone. So Blizzard just have to find a way to please the most amount of people and to piss off the least amount of people, which can be quite difficult to be fair.
It'll deliver leveling focused content or just be a geared treadmill for the endgame, or if any of these options are even possible. Will it just be an incremental release of new raids and dungeons until we've power crept anything and everything from 2006? Will it be zone expansions, leveling overhauls, new professions, all of the above? Or will it get inspired by old school RuneScape and integrate a more curated sandbox methodology to its design? But to be honest with you, I think none of these things will work, and here's why. Think back for a moment to a different time. 2019, Classic WoW just released, and even then, the idea of what comes next has been a constant, a conversation in-game and not. And for the longest time, Blizzard has been about as vague.
I want to ask you guys, by the way, in chat right now, and anybody, if I turn this into a video at some point, also in the comments down below, but like mainly in chat right now, when Classic WoW came out in 2019, did you think we would be playing Mists of Pandaria right now? Because for me, I kind of had this idea that it would stop in Wrath. I don't know about you guys. One in chat, if you thought it would end in Wrath, or at least before Pandaria, and two in chat, if you really believed we would be playing Pandaria. Because to me, I just feel like Pandaria was never an option even when I started playing. 2019 to me, I thought that we would literally just play through Vanilla WoW, TBC, and Wrath. I didn't even like consider Kata and Mists of Pandaria as an actual option back then. I don't know how you guys feel. Well, I do know now based on the 1s and 2s. It's like the one argument I can see for thinking about Cataclysm and Pandaria back then is that Blizzard obviously wants money, right? But even then I feel like they could have done it differently. What about after Wrath they gave us Classic Plus? That would have been infinitely more hype, by the way, than Cataclysm was and Mists of Pandaria was. I mean, looking at the numbers as well, it shows it clearly. There's a reason why right now a lot of people in the last year or so has gone to check out various other servers that now offer Classic Plus.
Vague about it as one would expect Blizzard to be. Truthfully, just like the players, they had no idea and were comfortable in allowing their subscribers to relive the nostalgia with a few minor changes, not just of classic vanilla Warcraft, but also the expansions preceding it. Now we're past the original game's player peak and are seeing an eerily similar trend get repeated once more. This isn't surprising. Blizzard has essentially opted to repeat history. No one should be scratching their heads over why the active player counts aren't booming. And now their backs are thoroughly up against a wall.
Yeah, those numbers, by the way, once again, this is what I've been saying. After Wrath, I think the right move would have been, and I thought from the start as well, would be to give us Classic Plus. And looking at this graph right here, that is what they should have done. Like Cataclysm, sure, Phase 1 was pretty okay, even raiding numbers-wise, but after Phase 1 it completely died. Like, those numbers right there are not great, by the way. Those numbers that we saw after the first dip, so like, we had Phase 1, and possibly Phase 2, I think, but like, the last 60% of Cataclysm before the complete drop-off is around the same number of people we had raiding in Season of Discovery. I'm just saying, like, Cataclysm, and that's a bunch of people that are playing on alts as well, right? I don't know, like, these numbers right here are not impressive. And after Cataclysm, or after Wrath, I mean, we should have gone to Classic Plus. At the very maximum, we should have had Cataclysm, and then a Classic Plus option. Because to me, it makes sense if they go to Cataclysm to do the Shattering, because that way people can no longer really level in Classic WoW. The Shattering happens, destroying Azeroth, and then people want to go back after a while. I personally thought Classic Plus would be here, about half a year after Cataclysm, and here we are. It's been 1.5 years, and still no Classic Plus. It's rough.
Facing the very real possibility of labeling Warlords of Draenor Classic and releasing what is widely considered to be the worst expansion in the game's history.
Yeah.
They need to think of something, anything.
Even me, by the way, I'm that one weird person who really loves Warlords of Draenor, and I have really fond memories. I will say the cut content does suck, and the open world also kinda sucks, but the leveling is actually kind of fun in the Warlords, to me personally, and the raids as well are great. I feel like PvP was pretty good back then, and I'm that one weird guy who loved the garrisons and gearing up followers and fighting followers, and that aspect to me, building my own army, was fun. But do I really want to relive that experience? I have nostalgic memories, but I feel like if I play it now, it will just ruin those memories. I would rather keep them as good memories, even as somebody who enjoyed the expansion. So in that case, I feel like if I, as somebody who enjoyed Warlords, don't really want Warlords Classic, how do the people that didn't even like Warlords feel about it? I don't know.
And fast. All of those quiet conversations from 2019 suddenly need to be acknowledged, actually acknowledged, not in a snide way like in Season of Discovery, but in a legitimate way, because most of the players left playing Classic aren't likely to transition to whatever retail WoW has become. Players and content creators alike are known to wax poetic about the future. All the unreleased content that Blizzard wanted to add in 2004 but simply didn't have the time.
Is my thumbnail? No! No, my thumbnail is not in there. Okay, let me see who I see here.
Future. All the unreleased content that Blizzard...
Okay, the video in the middle we have seen. I don't know the name of the creator here, but we have seen the video in the middle. Top left is Mad Season. Bottom left is Metagoblin. Bottom middle is Ebonheart. Bottom right, I would say, is Bellular. Maybe I'm wrong. And top right is Willy.
Wanted to add in 2004, but simply didn't have the time. Yet today...
Here I have no idea. Maybe the bottom one here is Willy, and the top one is... I have no idea.
I have the same issues with those old conversations from 2019 as I did back then. None of them, for whatever reason, acknowledge the fact that World of Warcraft may just not fit this model, this Classic Plus concept. On its surface, implementation looks fairly simple, right? This worked, so do more of it. But why did this work? In a few of my videos, I said that Classic, the original, still holds up today because of the emergent gameplay that it birthed. From Dire Maul tributes to guild collusions and world buff orchestration, as well as the simpler things like lining up to wait for mob spawns and random pickup groups to raid a gnoll camp. The leveling experience is the best in any theme park MMO ever, and the...
Dude, anybody who played the unofficial hardcore servers, by the way, before we actually got hardcore servers, those lining up for quests stuff, that was such a good time. I would not go through it now again, because, like, sure, it was cool back then, but I'm kind of over it. But standing in a 3-hour queue, because everybody was playing solo self-found, was actually really good times, I'm not gonna lie. Even just literally doing... What's it called? Like, there's a quest for the Defias Messenger in Westfall. I was once in a 3.5-hour queue, and everyone respected the queue. That was really good times, because like sometimes you have like 1 or 2 assholes who just skips the queue and tries to like tag it with, I don't know, like Fire Blast as a mage, or a Trap as a hunter, Moonfire as a druid. But at one point, I leveled up an alt, and everyone stood in the queue. 3.5-hour queue, by the way, was insane.
The interpersonal connections forged in the fires of tedious molten core runs were unlike anything in...
It was far from a 3-hour queue. No. One of them was a 3-hour queue. Not even joking. We have a stream clip that is probably not here anymore now. But like, it was an insane queue. The queue back then, on peak, when the queue was there, the queue went so far that it was like halfway to... If I go to it right now, I'm like literally in game. I can try to show you at some point if I fly here. Because I remember where I stood in the queue. when everyone was standing behind each other. I remember vividly where I was standing in that queue as well, and then you had to wait for the spawn. It was an insane queue. I don't know what happened that day, maybe it was like a peak day in a weekend, but usually it was a 1 hour queue at most, but that one time it was 3 hours, and it was quite huge. I'm gonna fly there now while we keep watching, so I can show you where I was standing at some point.
The genre, back then and as 2019 proved, still today. But if there's anything that Blizzard has fundamentally lacked the capacity to acknowledge, let alone replicate, is that emergence. Blizzard is compulsively obsessed with balancing out every single aspect of player-driven creativity and labeling it an exploit.
Oh no, dude, you're talking about Classic Plus and using content from retail? Is this rage bait? Ultimate level rage bait, dude? Operation Floodgate as well? Well, this is actually not a delve, this is a dungeon. Did I call it a delve? No, I think I just said retail content. But I thought it was a delve at first here, but I think maybe it's a dungeon? Level 8 looks like a dungeon, but it looks really similar to the delve as well. But yeah, retail content in Classic Plus, dude, rage bait.
Normal runs would not exist in any version of WoW other than Classic and maybe TBC. I don't want to make this video about all the pitfalls of time-gated slop bullshit plaguing retail WoW's otherwise exceptional gameplay, so let's instead mention the fact that Season of Discovery was closer in philosophy to retail than it was to Classic. The gameplay was still Classic WoW, sort of. They had some creative ideas for class design and some not so creative shoehorning of abilities from future expansions.
Yeah.
They repurposed dungeons as raids, which was neat, and they incrementally released the game with specific level brackets.
I want to talk about this, by the way, because I have been coming up with one suggestion for how we can get Classic Plus sooner, but also to make it more of a... I'm just going to talk about it. What if we have one staggered leveling phase for Classic Plus?
Turtle made it to the water.
Yo, thank you for the follow on Kick, by the way. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, we're streaming on Kick right now. But I was going to say, what if they give us one staggered leveling phase in Classic Plus? So
a turtle made it to the water.
Thank you as well for the follow. I appreciate it. So what if we stop the leveling at level 30? Phase 1 is capped at level 30. But also, Phase 1 only lasts for a month. So instead of Season of Discovery, where I feel like the whole staggering leveling was not the problem was how long it lasted. So being capped at level 25, I celebrated that when they told us, but in my head, I thought we would be level 25 for maybe 3 weeks, possibly 4 at most. We ended up being level 25 for what, 10 weeks? And then phase 2 level 40 for another 10 plus weeks as well. The leveling phases just lasted too long. It took us over a year, I think close to 1.5 years, to get to level 60. How insane is it to spend a year to get to max level? To me, that was the bad part. And in Classic Plus, I'm going to make one good argument here for why. Well, two. If they give us access to level 30 first for a month, they can focus on polishing the level 1 to 30 gameplay in Classic Plus. And while we play that, they can polish level 30 to 60 gameplay in a Classic Plus environment as well, giving themselves one more month to polish the endgame and also gather feedback from us while we play the game itself. But the main thing is, if you give us Classic Plus, people are going to rush to level 60. They will not try the new zones, they will not try the new dungeons, they will do what they need to get to level 60 as soon as they can. They will do the quests they know before, they're going to follow Rested XP, the arrow, and do those quests, they're going to speed level the way they know. The whole game for them will be to get to level 60. By having simply 1 month of being level 30, you pretty much force the people to enjoy the game. And I feel like they're just enjoying the world basically, and checking out the content that Blizzard has made in this case. Because the custom content they should make in Classic Plus should not only be endgame content, it should be leveling content. So like one singular staggered phase would simply allow people to not only rush to the endgame, but take some time and relax. And one more good point here would be that if I play Classic Plus, I will get to level 60 in a week, guaranteed, if we can get to level 60 in a week. And some other dude, some dad out there with a family and also a work and stuff, he's gonna be here after a week and he sees me at level 60. He's level 14, and he thinks to himself, well, I'm so far behind right now, I can't even get to where he is, I'm just gonna quit. Because, like, people have a competitive mindset to a certain degree, and if you are level 14 and you see a bunch of streamers and content creators and people being level 60, it's gonna feel a little bit bad, and you're gonna be, like, permanently behind or feel behind, or also just, like, is it even too late to start? It's a question we all get all the time. So I just feel like you give those people more time to level up without everybody else being at level 60. 3 good arguments to maybe have one singular staggered leveling phase, and once again, not talking about 4 months here at level 30, literally 4 weeks, 1 month tops.
In mind. On one hand, this replicated the classic beta they claim to be inspired by, but on the other, it is more closely aligned to expansion launches. The level cap increases, the amount of leveling to do is very, very minimal and quick, with tons of catch-up mechanics to make sure that you're never more than a dozen hours away from doing the single new raid available with your friends for like a few weeks before fading back into the brush like Homer Simpson, only to...
Oh yeah, I want to show you guys, by the way. I was talking about the whole queue just recently, right? For the Westfall Messenger. I went to Westfall right now to show you guys. So the messenger spawned around here, where I am right now, right? And usually the queue used to be 10, 20, sometimes 30 people, and the longest it usually was until this tree. So you had like people standing in line all this way to the messenger. When I went to the messenger, there was a queue, and like people stood basically inside each other's asses and formed a human centipede, and I was here. I literally had the queue before the sign. So like, imagine just a bunch of people, all the way from here, following the road, all the way to the messenger. I don't know why, but everyone just decided to do the messenger on the same day, man. It was insane. And I feel like people did it for the meme, because like, once again, usually, the queue was until this light post, maybe slightly longer back, but like, usually the queue was that long.
A
And I have
turtle
a
made
couple of
it to the
screenshots from the queue
water.
as well, being this long. I even have one from the queue being this long, but I didn't take a screenshot when it was all the way back here. But that was insane, because like, I didn't even plan to do the quests. I just happened to walk by, and I saw the queue, and I was like, sure, I'm gonna do it and be social. So I stood here for 3 hours plus, just talking to people, and even that was a good experience. Because like, back then we didn't really have the whole, you have to level fast mindset. It was way more about just forming connections and having fun.
to return back for the next expansion, or phase. While this was a fun experiment and just about as inconsequential as anything else in WoW, considering most people playing it knew their beloved characters would be prone to rotting on these servers after a year had passed. Or maybe they'd give you the honor of transferring them to whatever incarnation of Classic they deemed acceptable. But now, it's over, and Blizzard needs to, for the first time in a long time, have the difficult conversation of vision and philosophy. What is Classic Plus as a project? It can't just be another iffy year of throwing half-baked ideas patchworked together by a tiny development team and seeing what sticks, especially when backed by the ever-concerning reality that all of it may be deleted and forgotten. After all, an MMORPG is a promise of persistence. It's the understanding that you are expected to put in a lot of time doing something and not have that time be devalued by future updates or game closures. Now today that's not so much the case, as MMOs have become as fleeting as Diablo seasons, but I think WoW players were reminded of what an MMO actually feels like by having to exist in a version of their beloved world that wasn't perverted by some modern design sensibilities. For the first time, some players were able to...
Yo, what game was that footage from, by the way? Where he was riding? It's like the closest I can get there on my guessing is BDO, but I don't feel like that's BDO. It's just the quality there, like the graphics just really spoke to me.
Experience what having player agency feels like. I think the
It is BDO? I haven't played BDO since like a month after release, man. I no-lifed that game for about 1 month and then just quit cold turkey. But it looked like BDO, it did.
eye-opening moment for a lot of those experiencing Classic for the first time wasn't some general realization of exploration or simple classes, but the broader understanding that at one point, Azeroth felt like an actual place, somewhere to exist in rather than log into. Now, I don't want to just let that semi-meaningless phrase sit there, so let me elaborate as bluntly as I can. This was, in part, because it was grindier, more long-term, and demanded you spend your time playing rather than logging on Reddit and complaining about how much you need to play. Sometime in the next 20 years, there was a player and developer-driven realization that MMOs, which require a lot of time, effort, and commitment, are actually bad. Eventually, due to this, we landed where we are today with retail, and quite frankly, most of the genre, where MMOs have become jobs, not because they demand 8 hours a day, but because they meticulously curate how long you can and can't play and earn something from that play. And the few MMOs that don't feel this way, such as old school RuneScape that give their players the agency to set their own goals and spend dozens, hundreds, thousands of hours to achieve them without ever devaluing those achievements with future content, have been seeing a major resurgence. In a funny way, Classic WoW's success kind of laid the groundwork for that, the broad realization that this genre exists as time does. It is as inextricably bonded to the concept of giving it your time as you would anything in the real world. There's a reason.
I really feel like Blizzard would be very smart to take massive inspiration from old school RuneScape. I mean, there's a reason why 60% of classic WoW content creators are now only covering old school RuneScape, and 2 of those content creators, big ones as well, have even said publicly on streams and videos that they no longer even have a WoW sub. Like, they're so detached from the game right now that they have cancelled their subscription, and they only cover RuneScape, because they have no reason to log into WoW right now, and they're simply having more fun playing RuneScape. Which, sure, you can say it's due to a WoW burnout, I don't really care, but once again, there's a reason why over half of the big content creators in Classic has gone to old school RuneScape, and Blizzard probably, instead of just being mad about this, they should sit down and think, why? If they can figure out why, that is a huge step in the right direction. Because, like, you have 2 ways of looking at things when things go wrong. You can either ask yourself why and what happened, and what you can do better, or you can simply, like, cry. Go in the shower, drink some wine, eat some ice cream, and just cry. Or just try to be better.
MMOs were synonymous with second lives, not because you could play a character, but because you genuinely needed to be that character, spend time as them. That's why it's massive, that's why it's multiplayer, and that's why it's online. That's why there are open worlds and hundreds of things to do in them, and why of all video game genres, it's the one that had the most people form faceless relationships with one another through. Finally, whether you have 1 or 10 hours a day to invest, you want your investment to mean something. While Classic WoW provided that initially, now we're back in that questionable limbo of where the hell are we going? A lack of reassurance is an MMO non-starter. That's why people are hesitant to jump back into a dying game, because why should you invest thousands of hours into something that is on the precipice of non-existence? Thankfully, we have the players to give some feedback. Unfortunately, to create a good game, you need agile, responsive, intelligent developers to take in that feedback and synthesize a correct answer. If game design was as easy as just implementing player feedback, then making games would be so unfathomably simple philosophically. But it's not. And as I said in a prior video, players are like patients at a hospital. They know when something is wrong, but they may not know how to cure it. Players know something is wrong. Very, very wrong. And now they are
This is a very good, like objectively good video so far, by the way, and the way he's saying this makes so much sense. It's maybe not what everybody wants to hear, but it's what you need to hear. And when it comes to Classic Plus as well, like, people have their opinions, and they think they know what works. I'm not gonna say it, like, I was so close to saying you think you know, but you don't, but that would bite me in the ass, because we've already seen that happen. But no, not to me, but like, you think you do, but you don't. But it's all about listening to player feedback, but you also have to think about what the player wants and what the player needs. It's all about taking in the feedback and then synthesizing the right answer to the feedback. The way he said it made so much sense.
Are saying all kinds of stuff in an attempt to cure it, because as a hospital or a doctor, Blizzard has been dead silent for years. They have been leaving us on red, and we're dying over here.
Yeah, and not just that, but even just the last, let's say, 5 or 6 months, the silence has been incredibly deafening. Because even in Season of Discovery, like, Blizzard felt like the Classic WoW dev team felt like a different dev team. It just felt like they were all completely different people, or for some reason the corporate overlords at Blizzard has forced them to shut up right now for the last half year. In Season of Discovery, they were incredibly vocal, and they talked about their changes, the philosophies they were doing. They talked about what they were doing while they were doing it. Now they are just like being dead silent. Blizzard has never been good at communicating, I feel like, but Season of Discovery in Classic was a kind of breath of fresh air when it comes to communicating, and now they have literally taken that air far away, and it feels suffocating and deafening. I don't know. Communication right now is at an all-time low.
So while we have that one Classic Plus survey and the vague assurance that maybe it'll happen eventually, the more important question is, what will happen eventually? How will it happen eventually? What is Classic Plus to you? The easiest...
I want to point out, by the way, based on this survey, what Blizzard thinks, or what they're asking if we want in Classic Plus, like, some things here to me is just so far off, and I don't even know why they're asking for it. So, number 1, they have asked about pet battles in Classic Plus. Bro, get that out of here. Go back to your Panda Land with your pet stuff. Like, Pokemon battles is Panda Land only, thank you very much. And then account-wide perks and progression system, and maybe even like account-wide mounts and stuff, is a really controversial topic, man. I don't know how people feel about that one. The one that I really want to point out, though, is WoW Token. They literally had the balls of absolute steel, to ask you guys about pet battling in Classic Plus and WoW Token. And they even go as far as WoW Token, and they talk about it like this. They describe it like this: a secure and convenient way for players to exchange gold for game time or BattleNet balance. They're trying to sell you gold. Oof. Yeah, it is what it is.
And most common response is, it's just more classic, more dungeons, more raids, more endgame content, maybe
give pet battles, WoW tokens, and Torghast for C+. Throw some garrisons in there as well. Yeah, throw some garrisons in there. A Torghast, absolutely. Delves from the Warbit Inn would be lovely. And some Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus dungeons. That would also be lovely. If we can get garrisons with followers, that's even better. Just to like pump gold into the system. And if they can take away the entire world and replace it with incursions. I want to be able to do incursions all the way from level 1 to level 60, and don't stop there, by the way. I want to do incursions at level 60 as well, to make gold and gear up. I don't even want to have raids. I want the raids to be an incursion raid, where you are running circles, but you're calling it a raid, and gear up that way. That would be great. Just only incursions. Don't forget artifact power. That's a good one. Yeah, we need artifact power as well. That would be lovely.
maybe a few unfinished zones in the original game, and that's sort of it. This will only work in the short term. This is an MMO, and what you're saying Blizzard should do is release the same thing over and over again. This is both something that I think will kill the game, but also something I very well see Blizzard doing, because if there's anything they are competent at, it's making instanced content. Even then, what does that look like? Are we settling for expansions with extra steps, new raids that eventually power creep the old ones? Or if you aren't for power creep, what would itemization even look like half a decade later? Would there be raids with no good loot for certain classes because that well has run dry? Or are we going full send on power scale? Will we be critting for hundreds of thousands, if not millions, like in retail? Stats can occasionally be multiplicative, especially in Classic, where secondary stats often scale additively with their percent-based implementation. I know that's a very granular example, but what does this item that gives plus 2% critical strike chance look like in a decade's time? Do new items give plus 20% critical strike chance, or are they still just as weak? Neither are tenable options. I don't see a reality where Blizzard is releasing copious amounts of dungeons and raids and not power creeping the game to all hell. Not because they're incompetent, but because when you have a game that's purely motivated by combat and power progression, you need to actually motivate the combat and power progression. Just look at Season of Discovery, a version they pretty bluntly, if slightly sardonically, called Classic Plus More. Other players have realized that just adding expansion content minus the systems and bracketed levels doesn't really change anything other than make more boring versions of expansions. So instead they look toward the single success story in this space, old school RuneScape. I call OSRS a curated sandbox, as I don't believe it is exactly what one thinks of when they think sandbox MMO. It's not open-ended, and it's not only emergent. It's curated. The developers explicitly develop content to synergize with other content. The skills interconnect, the bosses build on one another, and eventually the additive nature of the game creates for dozens of different paths you can choose to go on.
I will say, by the way, I'm that one weird person. I don't know if it's weird, by the way, but let me know in chat right now. Have you played RuneScape, whether it's actual RuneScape or old school RuneScape or just any RuneScape? For me, I've played a total of 30 minutes of RuneScape in my life, and I think it was just me being stupid because I got stuck on one quest. I don't know what it was, but I think it had something to do with cows or something, but I believe I jumped over a fence, and I couldn't jump back the other way. So I got stuck, and I was in there for 30 minutes, and I was like, well, I can't get out. Good game. And I quit. Probably tells more about my quitting attitude than anything else, but yeah, I tried to play RuneScape once, because like one of my friends, I was a WoW nerd, he was a RuneScape nerd, so I played WoW all day, he played RuneScape all day, so we had a pact. I would try RuneScape, he would play WoW. So I tried RuneScape, he tried WoW, I got stuck in RuneScape and quit, and he basically quit WoW. And he has never played WoW since, and I've never played RuneScape since. Good story.
At any given moment. While a sandbox is open-ended conceptually, old-school RuneScape is more rigid in its structure, and the paths designed are done so, more often than not, intentionally. A curated sandbox. WoW isn't a sandbox, curated or not. It's a theme park, meaning the systems that hold it together are vertical and driven by erasure. It's inherently a more shallow and immediate game. That's phrased negatively, but there's a reason it became the most popular MMO ever. It works, and it can be incredibly fun. But these systems don't have the infrastructure needed to become additive in the same way a sandbox is. If old school RuneScape content looks like this, a large orb of things to do, with every new update adding a new growth onto it, World of Warcraft looks like this. In Classic anyway, where the leveling is broad and driven by your choice of zones and dungeons and grinds, and then narrows down significantly once you hit max, as you are given one of essentially three options. Grind professions for combat and gold, do raids for combat and loot, and PvP for combat and loot. You can do all of these things, but they aren't particularly deep or interconnected, are they? They're just kind of all roundabout means of doing the one thing that WoW has always been good at: killing shit. Even professions are all just a means to that end. The depth of content in WoW stems, as I've said, from emergent gameplay, roleplay, open-world battles, guild drama, world buff organizations, self-prescribed solo challenges for gold, and etc, etc, etc. These aren't pieces of developed content, but novel, creative approaches in engagement driven entirely by the player base and accepted by the developers. Instanced content on its own in a vacuum doesn't drive this. You can see what I mean by looking at retail or even Season of Discovery. There really aren't any good stories to tell because your only method of communication is driven by insular experiences, and any kind of strategic emergence is often undercut by the heavy hammer of Blizzard's intentional design. If this is Classic's content approach, then this is retail. It's as narrow and shallow as can be, even when the depth of class design is incredible and the actual instanced content is loads more nuanced. The methods through which you're allowed to play are more limited by contrast.
Hey, thank you for watching, and a special thank you to the members who support my channel. If you enjoy my content and want to become a member, you'll gain
I was gonna say, like, is the video over already? Because that was supposed to be a long video, but it's doing like a middle... It's either two videos smacked together, or he's doing a call out at the big, like in the middle of the video. I think that's what he's doing here. Alright.
access to all kinds of perks, such as extra unscripted content, shoutouts, and more. Thank you, and back to the video.
So, Classic Plus, it can't just be raids and dungeons, right? That won't work for longer than a couple years. Players will eventually get sick of the same cycle of content. Don't believe me? Here's Season of Discovery's population chart, or the best that the players have managed to figure out due to Blizzard's secrecy over actual player counts.
This right here was a raid logs, so not actual player counts, but raid logging. But raid logs do show a really, like, it shows the population of the game to a very good extent. Especially as he covered as well, like, WoW is good at killing stuff, and where do you kill stuff? Usually raids. A lot of people do raid, so this is a huge part of the game itself, and a huge part of what people are doing. So when you see this, it gives you a good idea of where the game is right now, in terms of popularity. And here we can see a massive drop-off at a certain point, and then it kept really steady at about 100k, I want to say this is, between 100 and 110k, something like that, where it kept steady for like, what is this, a year straight? It's been at around 100k since the 7th of 2024 until the 6th of 2025. That is almost a year straight of keeping steady. That's pretty good, but it's also kind of low compared to where we used to be, the peak.
Peaked immediately and then drastically dropped off, even when they added a properly new raid to the game. This is in major part due to Season of Discovery being seasonal, it's in the name, and therefore on a timer, making players less likely to invest their lives into it. But also because if all Classic players want is a new raid, they would just play retail. Oh, but classes are too complicated. Don't worry, you can now press one button just like in Classic. Here you go. Is that it then? Is Classic Plus dead in the water? Well, there's another thing that made it to the water. Turtles. That's so stupid. I'd be remiss to not
There we go, dude, turtles. A turtle made it to the water. That's my follower sound on Kick, by the way. A turtle made it to the water. I love this meme, by the way. I also love this world quest. I'm one of those weird guys who didn't hate this. I loved this back in the day.
Discuss the turtle of it all. If you aren't aware, it's likely the most popular WoW private server. Private servers are a funny thing for World of Warcraft because they're like harbingers of the future. They predict what's coming, whether it be Nostalrius leading directly to Classic WoW or the many Classic Plus incarnations that will lead into Classic Plus. Once Blizzard capitalized on releasing a classic version of WoW, private servers who did just that gave up their market to a slightly more consistent product. Everyone who wanted an old school version of WoW could go and finally play that officially, and today, everyone who wants a Classic Plus has had some options to peek behind the curtain and entertain some possibilities. Turtle WoW has been a long-running project that sought to bring the most faithful interpretation of what a Classic Plus can look like, instead of just importing retail systems like Blizzard wants to do. Housing, really? Can you name a more fucking tone-deaf system than a fully...
Yes. It's on the screen right now. I can name one thing that is more tone deaf, because player housing was actually in the vanilla WoW files. I feel like I'm gonna keep hearing what he has to say, but I feel like you could have pulled so many other examples, like for example, pet battles in Classic WoW. Where the fuck is that? Like, why would you have pet battles in Classic WoW? That is part of the same survey, by the way, just not on this screenshot. So pet battles is even more tone deaf, because player housing, we literally have a portal in Stormwind, in Classic WoW, Vanilla WoW, where player housing was meant to be. Player housing was meant to be part of Vanilla WoW. It just never got added because they never really figured out how to. But not only did we have a player housing zone or a portal to the zones, by the way, we have player housing houses in the vanilla WoW files as well. So we have the housing zones and we have the housing houses in, once again, the vanilla WoW files. So while it's been a good video so far, this is where I have to disagree heavily. Pet battles is once again way more intrusive and counterintuitive or like antithetical, whatever. It's way more not Classic Plus to me than player housing, because once again, Classic Plus, if you want to actually take vanilla WoW files and build on that, player housing was part of vanilla WoW. Pet battling was never a thing until Mist of Pandaria, but also on the same page right now, he's pointing to player housing. What about WoW tokens? Where in the flying fuck does WoW tokens comes into play? That one is, if you want to talk tone deaf, WoW tokens, really? Like, sure, people buy gold, but Blizzard is going to try to spin WoW tokens into, guys, we simply cannot fight gold buying and gold selling, and we can't do anything about botting. It is impossible, and the only way for us to combat this and deal with it is by having WoW tokens. And players are going to be like, oh, thank you, Daddy Blizzard, you finally fixed botting. Bro, WoW token is... Why is that there? Why is it there?
cosmetic instanced housing system in classic World of Warcraft? You
Yeah,
can.
pet
It's
battling.
called transmog, and it was also on the survey.
There we
Regardless,
go.
Turtle WoW augments the classic experience by expanding zones, adding new ones, creating new professions, and thousands of new items, and so on. It's essentially Classic Plus in the most reasonable sense, and one that I think Blizzard could maybe pull off. Now, I know that in and of itself sounds pathetic. I think maybe the billion-dollar corporation might be able to match the quality of a few fans, but that's where we're at today. This is...
Yeah, it's like Wisp says right now in Kick Chat as well, and I thoroughly agree heavily, by the way. Player housing could be another system to keep players in the world doing something, rather than just raid logging. I don't see the issue with it even in C++. Exactly, I feel the same way. It could be a system that keeps people doing stuff in the world. And here's the thing. Player housing could be a system that you don't have to interact with if you don't want to, which means people that simply want to raid log, they can keep doing so, but it gives people options of gameplay that is not just rushing to level 60, not just doing Molten Core and Blackwing Lair. It's just like, I don't see anything wrong with it personally. But WoW tokens and pet battling, I definitely, like, once again, pet battling though is like, it's the same thing where you are giving people something to do, but like pet battling in Classic Plus to me just sounds so weird, and I don't know, like that to me is a Mist of Pandaria feature. Meanwhile, player housing was literally in the vanilla WoW files, so it feels more classic to me. But yeah, like, just make it so people don't have to interact with it if they don't want to, but it makes the world just more relevant.
Again, not because Blizzard developers are incompetent. There's nothing inherently wrong with the development team, but because Blizzard as a whole has no connective understanding of what made classic WoW good. And whatever filters down from management or their creative directors is so diluted and synthetic that it probably tastes like poison to the developers who are shackled to their desks and forced to implement another 1,700 recolors of the same mount onto the trading post. And history tends to repeat itself, with Blizzard suing the developers of Turtle WoW. This is expected. Everybody playing private servers must know the developer.
It's like, it is to be expected, absolutely. But the way they've gone about it, though, I don't know. Like, they're literally using anti-mafia law here. I personally wasn't expecting this. I was expecting something on a smaller scale, because like the one example we have from the past, which was arguably as big, if not bigger than Turtle as well, depending on how you want to see things, like, based on the accounts made, I think Nostalgius had more accounts, wasn't it like 800k? Or am I being stupid? Either way, like, back then, they got a cease and desist, and they basically shut it down by themselves, right? We haven't really seen a lawsuit, and especially not to this degree before. That's pretty insane. We have seen one suit, I believe, which was in 2010 against Wowscape. If anybody actually played back then. That was like a World of Warcraft RuneScape server, and they had to pay millions in damages and fees. But Nostalgius, on the other hand, like the one thing that people compare this to, that was just a cease and desist. The last time we saw a suit on this scale, kind of, I think was 2010 and Wowscape. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Included that this is an impermanent detour. Naturally, the most competent people at Blizzard are their lawyers, so they can utilize this to snuff out the self-perpetuated competition before launching their standardized version. Now, that's not to say Blizzard's actions are unreasonable. It's their IP, legally, and they can very well do with it as they please. With that said, I feel as though there were ways to create a more amicable relationship with those creating a product that is at this point more conceptually and systemically interesting than anything Blizzard has made in like a decade. Remember, the people playing Turtle WoW are also going to be the ones playing your version of Classic Plus too. In my perfect world, approaching this situation as some developers have modding would lead to a better relationship with your fans, but I am not privy to the facts of the matter, so I will leave my speculation there. The lawsuit is undeniably legitimate and warranted. Instead, I'm a lot more compelled to think about the reasons for all of this to come about in the first place. Private servers within the Warcraft ecosystem have always been responses to what WoW itself lacked, doing what Blizzard hadn't or couldn't. As mentioned, it started with Classic WoW and now is revolving around Classic Plus. Blizzard's inability to be even remotely agile as this lumbering, obese, megalithic corporation suspended in the air like an impotent Baron Harkonnen has put them in the undesirable position of needing to retroactively mend cuts that have already scarred over. They delivered Classic WoW years too late, and now they are likely scrambling to come up with a cost-effective Classic Plus. But even Turtle WoW has issues, conceptually.
The words he's using is next level, dude. Holy.
It's a very interesting peek into what Classic Plus could be, but it's also a narrow one, demographically speaking. The population that has enjoyed it is relatively small by comparison to the one that Blizzard needs to attract to sustain a full-scale development of a different version of WoW. That's the second, slightly more sympathetic argument I can think of. Blizzard is between a rock and a hard place. If they need to create what amounts to be a sustainable amount of content for a theme park MMO like WoW, they're going to need at least 100 developers on the project. And suddenly, what was held together by shoestrings attached to rusty cogs, lubed up by stolen breast milk, is now a full-scale operation. One that
You can't just like make that shout right there and just move on. That was insane. The last 10 seconds there of the video is like the biggest shot he's thrown at Blizzard. What the fuck was that? That is insane.
Substantial budget and return to sustain. It may not be totally reasonable for the executives to greenlight such a project if we want a version of Classic Plus with a proper content cadence that allows you to play for as long as you did back in 2019 without immense content droughts. Then are you willing to shoulder shitty monetization schemes? The answer should be no. WoW tokens, which likely would be added, whether it be immediately or after enough players have sufficiently sunk costed their way into endgame rating, may also exist beside cosmetics. There's a reason why Blizzard is considering transmog, cosmetic overrides, as a system to include. We also have seen them cross-port models between versions, which allows them to do the same with the deluge of cosmetic glut populating retail WoW. Sure, this allows for some level of horizontal repurposing of outmoded content through cosmetic collection, but it also allows them to monetize it to all hell. This is not a novel realization. They added a fucking WoW token to Wrath of the Lich King Classic, which was literally just a re-release of an expansion. It was like 4 developers locked in a cage getting fed hamster food and working on a single Macintosh from 2007.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. But also, they literally have on the same... I'm surprised they didn't mention this, but like on the same picture that he talked about earlier when he talked about the whole survey and player housing and stuff, on the same picture, they literally have WoW tokens. So even now, before making Classic Plus, they're asking us, are you okay with WoW tokens? They're already thinking about adding WoW tokens in Classic Plus.
Hyperbole, but obviously the scale of these projects would be different by comparison. Blizzard
Padre,
needs
hello, by the way. How
that
you
wide
doing?
demographic to even consider a standard monetization model. Let's defer back to the initial topic. What is Classic Plus? Sadly, I don't have an answer. I've heard options and all of them sound holistically unconvincing. Adding some new zones and raids wouldn't be sustainable. It completely misses the point, the appeal of WoW. I think adding new leveling content would be very cool thematically, but a huge time investment for little return. I'd love to see new leveling zones and expansions on old ones, but that can't be the selling point of the game because for most players, it's a one-time experience. And ultimately, the third option would be to make WoW a sandbox, or as close to one as possible. Turtle WoW has already been leaning heavier into this, an effort to sustain pre-existing content while employing the additive formula of old-school RuneScape. It may be the only option that sees the game survive for longer than a year or two. But by doing so, would it even be WoW anymore? If we uproot the subgenre that it in many ways perfected and transition it into another one, how much of that DNA will still be there? In some ways, it's like the ship of Theseus. In an attempt to replicate success, we begin to slowly rip apart the core of the game, reshape it into the version that we always wanted it to be. But in the process, is it the original anymore? How can it be Classic Plus when the plus is subsuming the classic? I would still prefer this though. I would rather see Blizzard swing for the fences and attempt to synthesize the gameplay and design people love into a more sustainable package for the future. If you agree, let's think of what that could look like in a general sense. For one, the entire itemization process would need to completely change. There would need to be entirely new systems added to the game, more interconnected elements in its professions, perhaps even allowing everyone to be every profession and exponentially increasing the amount of time needed to level them up, kind of creating a RuneScape-esque progression. Adding dozens, if not hundreds, of new profession-specific items that enhance your gameplay, building up a world where you're just as likely to go to Stone Talon Mountains as you are Blackrock Mountain. Adding horizontal systems that aren't just facilitating combat, but rather act as entirely new avenues of gameplay with enough depth to mimic that of combat. Things that you're excited to log into and do, and spend weeks grinding without ever needing to touch any of the traditionally Warcraft endgame. And finally, having the foresight and confidence needed to exist alongside player-driven emergence. It requires such a deft hand, such a nuanced and impressive understanding of World of Warcraft that I'm not sure anyone can pull it off. Because that's what RuneScape is. The benefit of old school RuneScape is that it has always been that, but the understanding of how to harness this has only improved in time. Today, our developers are very in tune with the systems of the sandbox, but only after years of trials and failures. It took the game dying, arguably twice, and being born again to iron out a long-term vision. Blizzard has not communicated anything to anyone. I'd be surprised if even the developers know what the future holds for this yet unannounced but kind of announced project. How is anyone to feel confident that they're in good hands when they can't even see the hands holding them? It's a maddening process. If there's anything I will advocate for, it's to be honest with your interests and forceful with your intentions. We're not talking old school RuneScape here. Jagex has had well over a decade to become agile and responsive to their community, and has integrated a controversial but exceptional polling system that gives a voice to players that all generally agree on what old school RuneScape is, what its future looks like. That's not without plenty of drama, but a skiller, a top-end PVMer, and a new player can all identify the overarching identity of old school RuneScape. The same cannot be said about Classic Plus. The community behind this concept needs time to evolve with it, but time itself is of the essence. There won't be a decade of mistakes because Blizzard's investment needs to be a lot more expensive to create a sustainable product. A sandbox, curated or not, is great at repurposing content and creating huge releases out of a comparably small amount of development time. Because old school RuneScape is long-form, incremental, and ever-growing, the developers can release a piece of content that will take months to complete without people batting an eye because they know that it will always be there. It won't be deleted with a seasonal update or an expansion. That is the subgenre Diffie. Even vanilla WoW all the way back in 2004 never had this luxury. Things were certainly more relevant for a longer period of time, but at this point, that strikes me more as a happy accident than an intended piece of design. The fact that Molten Core gear remained somewhat relevant in Naxxramas could have very well been because Blizzard's developers had yet to fully grasp the intricacies of their own itemization. And we've seen as much in Season of Discovery, sanding down the rough edges of item design to facilitate a more linear progression. Now, I want to ask you if just a half-year cycle of patches adding a new raid, maybe a new dungeon, and perhaps even some overworld stuff to do, whether that be a zone expansion or new leveling content, would be enough to retain your excitement about the game. Not now, but years later. The benefit of a classic WoW release is that there are two enormous continents to journey through in your task to get max level. A single new zone or minor expansion doesn't add that agency. Hell, even a fully new continent doesn't add that, as we've seen with the expansions that followed. So when I say be forceful with intent, I mean that you should, as a huge WoW fan, consider what it means to be playing a Classic Plus. Not now or in a year, but maybe in 5 years, 10. What does the game look like? What does your gameplay look like? Whatever the answer to that is, I hope it's not yet another path to where we currently are today.
Damn, alright. Yeah. That was a good video, by the way. This guy has a lot of good takes. Absolutely. And a very good video in just talking about the whole philosophy behind Classic Plus, because, like, we can sit here and talk about what we want to see in Classic Plus, but at the end of the day, it's all about the intent behind, and also talking more about the gameplay systems. Because I personally I would love to see a lot of new zones just take Turtle WoW and copy and paste, or add their own things as well, in addition. But they also have to think about replayability, horizontal progression. There's way more to think about than only adding new content. But obviously, Classic Plus is Classic with a plus. So, like, more content in Classic, but you also have to think about everything else. I will give you a link for anybody who happened to tune in during the reaction. I'll give you guys a link to it as well, so you can see the entire thing. This video right here. Go and give it a like, and if you want to see the entire video, if you like tuned in the middle, just check it out if you want to. Yeah, there we go. Really good video. Thanks for the movie time, now I need to sleep. See you around here, my best. Thank you for being here, I really do appreciate it. Have a good night's sleep. Yeah, that was an interesting video, and out of all the Classic Plus videos that I've seen, that one is very different, and I really enjoyed it. It's been a 30-minute video, and I have no idea how much time I added by reacting to everything here, but probably been an hour or something. Pretty crazy. But I feel like when it comes to Classic Plus, I have opinions as well, and even though they might not be the right ones, I'm allowed to voice them. And I feel like Blizzard here, they need to just listen to feedback, and then they need to filter, because they need to listen to feedback, but then they have to filter it by good feedback, bad feedback, trash feedback, and actually useful feedback. It's like they have to filter it in so many different ways, because you have some feedback that is so useful that you have to implement it right away, and then you have some feedback that is good, but needs to be tweaked a little bit to then be implemented, right? It's a bit of work. I really just want to see Classic Plus, and I want it to be good. It's just, will it really be? I mean, the title of the video is literally Classic Plus. Will never work. That is such a rage bait title, by the way, but might not be wrong. I mean, it is what it is, right? I would love for the future to be user-generated content and having access to custom servers within Blizzard. So like Turtle WoW, but actually on Blizzard. So to show you what I mean, if you are in the game right now and you go to a server choosing, over here you change realm, and in the bottom corner here you can currently see seasonal, anniversary, Russian, classic era. What if right here we had another category called custom servers, or UGC, whatever, right? Like private servers, but in WoW. So over here you would have actual Turtle WoW, you would have Epoch, Warmain, all of these servers on actual Blizzard servers, and you could play them. So like literally play Turtle. And what this would do is allow Blizzard to capitalize from private server success, and also allow us to have the confidence that these servers would never be taken down. They're officially owned by Blizzard now, but players are developing them. And let's just say that subscription revenue goes to Blizzard, but these servers can have donations, and donations, 80% goes to the developers and 20% goes to Blizzard. That way they still make money from it, right? And developers can also make money from it at the same time. Just a way to have actual custom servers on Blizzard. And another point here is that that would take away, like Blizzard would save millions, if not even billions on development. Like first of all, development costs, and then development time, and then also like the cost of assets, the cost of workforce. They would save many millions, by the way, and they could also make many millions as well at the same time. I feel like that is the obvious path forward at some point. Just sadly, I believe we are like 10 years away from that future. And then the question is, are we still gonna be interested in Classic in 10 years? That's a decent question. I don't know if we're going to be that interested in Classic in 10 years, I'm not gonna lie. But guys, I'm going to end the stream right here. It's been a natty 6-hour stream. I was gonna end it like 2 hours ago. My plan was to stream until 10. So 3 hours ago, actually. My plan was to stream until 10, 11, and then work on some footage for future videos. So I'm working overtime. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the stream, the first actual partnered stream here on Kick as well. So thank you all so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. The plan is to have an actual stream schedule, and the plan is to be live from about 5, like between 4 and 5 p.m. my time, to about 10. That way I can make some videos in the evening as well, after the stream. So, like, streaming and making videos, we'll see. The plan is to be live for 4 to 5 hours every single day, alright? Either way, guys, it's been real. I really appreciate you for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I'll see you tomorrow, okay? About 4 p.m. my time. So whatever time that is for you, it should be in about 15 hours from now, right? 15, 16 hours. Alright, good night. Bye-bye. Bye.